Hey, Destination Unknown. I'm your host, Alyssa Hall, and today's video looks a lot different. Obviously, I am in my car. I am sitting outside the COVID testing center. We did have a COVID positive case at my workplace at the theater, so I'm getting a test to make sure that I'm okay and negative and ready to go back to the building. But until I do, I'm sitting here today, and so I wanted to use my time to talk to you. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about for today, I know we've been doing palmistry quite a bit right now, but I wanted to take a break for this week in particular to circle back to a subject that comes up again and again if you're going to be a reader. And that really comes down to what I call problem sitters. And what I mean by a problem sitter is the sitter refers to anyone who's sitting across from you who's looking to have a reading. Most often, as you know, my readings are going to be palm readings or tarot readings. Those are my specialties. And the nature of the reading that you're doing in and of itself is part of what creates the problems that you may or may not have with a problem sitter. So what makes a problem sitter different than a regular sitter? Problem sitters for me are the ones that you need to know as a tarot reader or as a reader in general that they have an agenda as they come to you. So what I mean by that is they have anyone who comes to you for a reading, most often they may or may not have a problem that they want to have read for. Most often, if it's a tarot reading, in my experience, if somebody requests that reading of me, they usually have something on their mind that they want to have some more information about, that they're looking to do some digging in their life. And getting more information from the tarot is a great way to do some digging inside yourself. So I encourage that process very much. But what makes a problem sitter different from a normal sitter is the problem sitter will have that agenda. They will have that bias built in before the first card is even laid down. They already know what they want the reading to tell them. And whether they know this or whether it's more unconscious, they will then try to steer the reading so that it becomes entirely about what they want the cards to tell them. So in other words, if they really want to get a divorce, but they're afraid, they are going to try to steer this relationship reading into a place that says, you should probably move on. There's something else waiting for you. There are better horizons. All of these kinds of messages are something that they will continue to plant into the reading. So in other words, maybe I've got a card that's come up and I'm looking at, say, the Three of Swords, which shows the three swords that are piercing the heart, and say this is a relationship reading. And somebody might cast upon that and say right away, yes, there's the heartbreak that I'm feeling right now. That is the verification that I am in pain and therefore I should make this choice. And so they might ask of you while you're saying this is a card which represents a time of great sorrow, a time of heartache, a time of betrayal. They will then possibly come back with, what should I do about the betrayal? I know that I've already been doing this. Should I leave him? They'll start supplying answers that you haven't given. That's one of the signs of a problem sitter. They will then begin to interpret what you did not say into the card itself. That's one of the signs of a problem sitter. The way that I deal with that is I continue to reiterate and just go right back to the message of the card is, the message of this card really is here to tell you what this card really is expressing isn't blah, blah. Just keep going back to that language. That's my advice for how I deal with them. Another way that you will encounter a problem sitter is someone who does not have, again, they have that bias or that agenda that they're looking to have read for. So they want the reading to tell them what they want the reading to tell them. And so another way, if they're not actually pushing the words into your mouth during the reading, like the last example, another example of a problem sitter is they will keep asking for cards. They will ask for another card and another card. And you heard me talk about this briefly over Christmas when we were talking about spreads. And adding extra clarifier cards to a spread, that can be kind of a slippery slope, a tricky thing. And the reason I say that is more cards doesn't always equal more information, and people don't always see that. They just think, give me another card. This card didn't tell me what I wanted to hear. So can you pull me another? Can you pull me another? What about this? What about how so-and-so feels? What about if I should do this? What about my child? What about my job? They'll keep pushing the same concept. So basically, should I stay in my marriage? And then they'll keep going around that same question with a whole bunch of other little tangential questions that they keep wanting more cards for and to be read for. And this is, again, normally the sign of somebody who is pushing their agenda into the reading itself. And so they're looking to make it what they want it to be. And basically, they are looking for justification for a decision that they feel they need to make, but for whatever reason, they don't feel empowered enough to make it on their own. So they're asking the cards, or you as the reader of the cards, to make that decision for them, which leads me to the next problem sitter. The next kind of problem sitter that you will most likely encounter at some point during your reading career is the problem sitter who doesn't want to make any choices for themselves. They want tarot or divination of some sort to make every choice. And I had a reader once, or a sitter once like that. She called me for just an initial reading about her relationship. She felt like she got a lot out of that reading, and she's said, hey, I want to keep you on speed dial, give you a call all the time if I have other questions or if I want another reading. And I said, sure, please, absolutely, because, who doesn't want return business in any business that you have? Well, I got what I wished for, because she started calling me quite a bit. She would call several times a week. She got to the point where she started calling to find out whether or not she should go to the post office that day. Yeah. So those are problems that you can have also. The problem sitter, how do I deal with that? How did I deal with that? I had to tell her point blank that she had to take control of her life, and that tarot was not here as a substitute for her own willpower. And I use the example that I often use when I'm reading tarot for other people, which is that tarot should be like a good weather forecast. We may not be able to change the percentage of whether or not we're going to see some rain that day. That may happen anyway, but we might be better prepared for it. We might know and dress appropriately, bring our umbrella. So if we have those kind of ideas in place, we can be better prepared for what we're faced with in life. And so I gave her that example, but I had to very clearly start telling her, no, I will not read for you. Not even for money, because then she wanted to throw money at me. I'd be happy to pay for more readings. I don't mind. I'm happy to do it. That can be the hardest thing to say no to, especially if you're in a position such as myself, where money is not, many of us, we don't have endless resources. That's just not reality. And so when we have a resource coming in, it can be very difficult to cut that resource off and say no. As much as I do need money, because some reason people think, my friend Antonia, if you're watching this, girlfriend, like you said the other day, people think we exist on moonbeams and rainbows, I guess. I don't know, but we have to buy groceries and everything. We have bills to pay. So of course, yes, reading for money is very important. That's an energy exchange. Some people will insist, no, I can't read for money, or I don't read for money because that taints the reading. That's fine. If you feel that way, that's fine. Don't read for money. But understand that even if a person is reading for money, it doesn't automatically make them a shyster. There are a lot of shysters in the business that I'm in. You have to watch out for them. But just because they are charging you doesn't mean that they are necessarily gouging you, price gouging, and looking to take your money. So that's kind of an opposite caveat. When you're being read for by another, of course, you want to make sure that you're going to a reader who you feel is legitimately listening to you and legitimately reading for your issue. Sometimes you will feel, if you go to a reader, I'm flip-flopping on our question because now I'm talking about being a sitter and a problem reader. If you have a problem reader, what does that look like? Well, for me, I've had a couple bad readings. I don't know about you. There's my phone. And good news, it was about my vehicle. Yeah, my warranty is up. Anyhow, moving back to what we were saying. So a problem reader is going to be someone who feels very disengaged. They aren't really listening to what you're asking or what the question is that you're trying to have read for. Or they just seem completely disconnected. I've had those readings as well, where the reader themselves just looks like they are bored to tears, like they could care less that they're there that day at the Renaissance Fair or wherever. And it feels very disconnected. So that can be what it feels like to be a sitter on the opposite end of it and not connect with your reader. But more often on this channel, we're focusing on what it means to be a reader and some of the hurdles and obstacles you face along the way. And that's definitely one of them. Problem sitters are a big problem. They will come up. So if we don't have someone who's necessarily pushing their own words onto the situation, maybe they aren't asking for all the extra cards to tell them what they want to hear. And, maybe they're not leaning on tarot to make all their decisions for them. Maybe what other problems could we have for a reader? The last one that I would end with is the reader who really, they love you too much. It sounds funny, but it's true. They have so much reverence for the process of tarot reading and for you that they begin to put you kind of on a pedestal. And I'm not comfortable with that. Some people enjoy hero worship, but I'm not one of them. And I never started this channel as a way to be a hero worship or an influencer, as they say nowadays. I just thought, wow, wouldn't it be great, since I have literally decades of knowledge on all of these subjects that I don't necessarily talk about or do much with. It'd be nice to share some of that with people. And so that's how I got started. So thank you for your investment in me. And I hope that I am helping you in your path. But these are subjects that don't get talked about very often. So the last one, the ones who love you too much, what does that look like, Alyssa? How could that be a problem? They begin to treat you like you are literally a vessel of God. Like everything that comes out of your mouth is the God's honest truth, and that you are a prophet, and that everything that you say should be listened to and is divination. No, anybody who tells you that is just full of it, crock of shit. Alyssa, she's going to give it to you straight. That's how we talk here on Destination Unknown. So problem sitters, the last one I want to talk about, I said that the word hero worship was the last one. There is one more that's worth talking about before we let our conversation wrap for today. And those are the problem sitters who are in a highly emotional state. These are the ones that are going to be the hardest for you to ever deal with. At least they are for me. These are people who are not trying to push their own agenda into the reading. They are just simply so desperate and so at the end of their rope that you have to know as a human being that they are coming to you in an extraordinarily fragile emotional state. And that this reading in and of itself, what you tell them, could push this person to do some very drastic actions next. Am I responsible for what actions people take after the reading? I don't know. That's a question that each reader has to ask. I have had readings go where people have made some drastic life decisions based on the reading that they had, and they told me about these drastic life decisions after the fact, and I found that frightening, to be honest, that they would take a simple 3-card reading and decide to divorce their husband and move overseas because of something I said. That's very unnerving. So you have to understand, as a reader, you have a very strong responsibility to the person who's sitting in front of you. Not only because you have a responsibility to wean them off tarot if they're leaning on it too much, but also you need to be able to deliver their reading in a way that is going to be thoughtful of their emotions, especially if you can tell they're in a highly emotional state, because the last thing we need is for someone to get bad news and then decide to do something more drastic. And I think we all know what I'm alluding to. So these are some of the more dark and tragic moments that you can face. Being a reader isn't always moonbeams and rainbows, right? It's not all ooh la la and meditation and looking inside yourself. Sometimes you're going to be helping other people, and you're going to be helping them when they need help in ways they've never had to reach out and look for before. That's a big responsibility. It's one I take very seriously, and for that reason I wanted to give it some subject and talk about it on the channel. So thanks for helping me pass a little time here while I wait for my COVID test. I hope you made it to the end of this, and maybe this gives you a few ideas on what to think about when you're dealing with your own readers and your own sitters. What makes for a good sitter. So hope that helps, and we'll see you next time here on Destination Unknown.